As photographers, we've convinced ourselves that we have to travel far and wide to create iconic images. You know, Icelandic waterfalls, the deserts of the southwestern US, or the back streets and medinas of Morocco. While this is usually true, and I know this is going to sound cliche, we can also find photographic inspiration in our own backyard, literally and figuratively. So let's look at some suggestions as to how we can do this. Well, the pandemic has put a clamp on international travel, so it's up to us to look for inspiration locally. An area like this, where I live, the land is flat and boring. And that's mostly due to the fact that over 200 years ago, they started taking all the forest out for agriculture and urban growth. I've also heard this area referred to lately as a sea of corn, soybeans, and concrete. How do we create interesting art in our seemingly uninteresting and familiar surroundings? Well, to start, we might concentrate on detail rather than the landscape itself. Things that surround us provide detail and symmetry. Leaves of garden plants, or the center of a flower, for instance, provide patterns and shapes that evolve when we look closely. Sunlight on leaves in a forest can be quite appealing, as can the bark carvings and roots of a giant 100-year-old tree. Everyday man-made objects are also potential subjects. Garden ornaments, food and drink, and doorknobs or door knockers might work for you. If you have access to a musical instrument, try getting close and photographing specific parts of it in dramatic light. Go out of town a little and find detail along rail lines or telephone wires against a threatening sky. Consider architecture. If you live in a city or town, buildings provide shape and repetitive patterns, or they may act as a giant reflector, revealing their surroundings. Older buildings and churches may feature gargoyles, and of course, graffiti and murals can always be found in alleyways. Magic hours create a lot of opportunity. Find a lone tree in a field and take a silhouette against a dramatic sky. Or look at how the last light of day reflects off buildings. At the beginning and the end of day, clouds become colorful and provide opportunities for dramatic panoramics. Go a little abstract. Photograph the surface of a pool, lake, or stream with a sunset reflecting from it, or bubbles that form after a heavy downpour. Raindrops on a glassy surface will reflect the surroundings like a mirror and take on the colors of the background. Buildings reflected in water take on a shimmery, surrealistic look. Tree bark can appear like canyons and mountains from the air. While access is often difficult or forbidden, decaying buildings and abandoned vehicles provide tons of details. Attend a local cultural event, such as a First Nations powwow. You can create a lot of images, with permission as required, and avoid the necessity for model releases by focusing just on costume detail. Sometimes it's also a matter of perspective, the position from which we photograph something. Now, not everyone can afford a drone, but consider how crops and trees look from above. The tops of the trees in a forest can resemble broccoli, while the crop rows reveal symmetry and shape. And finally, decide how you're going to present them. Aspect ratio is one consideration. Do you leave them as they were shot, or crop them square, for instance? Do some images look more dramatic in black and white than in color? What about framing? You might think about creating a group of 3 similar images for the wall, often referred to as a triptych, or a grouping of square format monochromes. Well, clearly there's a lot of material that we can photograph close to home. Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of things that I missed in this video, so if you've got some ideas of other things we can photograph close to home, please put them down in the comments below. And if you like this material, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.